Hello there, fabulous third grade artists. Welcome to week 3 of our Peter Pan Playbill project. We have made it to our second drafts. I hope you are feeling prepared to get started on this after last week's practice. I am sure these are going to be stellar. Let's go ahead and take a look at what we're going to do first. This week's supplies are listed right here, so make sure you have a number 2 pencil and eraser, a Peter Pan Playbill draft sheet that's attached to the assignment in Google Classroom, and something to color with. Our final drafts, we will be using colored pencils, and I'm debating markers, so keep that in your brain while you are thinking about which coloring tools that you would like to use. You can also always, of course, if you have crayons, use those. We have 6 steps this week. You are doing step 1 with me right now by watching this entire slide directional video. Step 2 we will also do together. Then steps 3 through step 6 will be done independently with some help from family members at home if needed. Your slide directional video will be right here. So if you are watching this, congratulations, you are already on step number 1. When you are done with your directional video, you can go ahead and check this off mentally and know that you're ready to move on to the bulk of our project. We have 2 learning targets this week. Our first one is, I can use my creativity to draw a non-linguistic representation of my favorite part of the book, Peter Pan. Our second learning target is I can apply the drawing skills I practiced last week to my second draft so that my second draft shows growth. So all that hard work, all that practice that we did last week when we were working really hard on drawing the London skyline, drawing people, drawing fancy bubble letters, that's all going to come in handy on this draft and our next draft. I also thought it would be really cool because we've been looking at a lot of Mary Blair's artwork, which of course is the Disney version of Peter Pan. There are many other versions of Peter Pan, and these are some of the original illustrations from the original book. And you'll notice that they're very different from the Peter Pan illustrations we might be used to seeing because of the Disney version. So I wanted to include those because when we get started on our second draft, know that you do not have to draw, and please actually don't draw your Peter Pan characters or settings or anything like that as an exact copy of Mary Blair's work. You have your own wonderful, amazing, stupendous creativity and perspective and point of view, and I really want to make sure that that's reflected in your artwork. The next thing that you can do is watch the read aloud of Mary Blair's Unique Flair. This is a different book about Mary Blair, and it offers a different perspective on her life. Some things are the same as they were in our first book that we looked at, and some are different. What's something new that you learned about her? And how does this book differ from the other book? That's always great to know, because when we have books by multiple authors, we get a better idea of who Mary Blair was. I'm going to go on to our next slide. You're going to start your second draft in just a second, but before you do, reflect on your first draft. You can either look at it exactly, or you can just picture it in your brain. The first thing that you need to consider is, do you like the scene you chose to draw for your first draft? If so, great. If not, you can choose a different scene for your second draft. Keep this in mind though, whichever scene you draw for this draft is going to be the scene that you draw for your final draft, because you'll be getting feedback on this draft. You could also reflect on the challenges. What was challenging about drawing your first draft? So for example, maybe it was really hard to draw people. So how could you rise to that challenge? What skill did you practice last week that could make drawing a person on your second draft easier? Maybe you need to revisit some of the drawing guides. Maybe you need to watch some of the drawing people directional videos. Any of those are different ways to rise to the challenge of drawing your second draft. The third thing that you should reflect on is if you drew a background on your first draft. If so, did you color the whole thing in? If not, why not? What do you plan on doing differently on your next draft? So we want to make sure we include a background for this one so our characters are not floating in midair. While Peter Pan and the Darling Children can fly, there are still things behind them in the sky if they are flying, like the night sky. There are stars and moons, or the moon, not moons. So all of those things should be included if you're choosing to draw them flying. Also, you want to consider your coloring quality. Are you coloring at a level 1, 2, 3, or 4? And how could you move up to the next level on your next draft? I'll give you a hint. Everybody is at about a 1, a 2, or a 3. So think about what number you'd like to move up to on this next draft. After you've reflected on your first draft, you can begin your second. On your Playbill draft, which looks like this, inside the rectangle provided, you can go ahead and draw a scene from Peter Pan inside the box. Remember, whatever scene you choose to do this time is the one you're going to also do on your final draft, so keep that in mind while you're picking. This is another one of the original illustrations from Peter Pan. I substituted it onto the Playbill to show what a Playbill could look like. The next thing that you'll do after you've drawn your non-linguistic representation of Peter Pan, and that's a fancy way of saying an illustration, because there are no words in it, you're going to color in your second draft with colored pencils. We are going to, and you could also use a little bit of marker on this too. We just don't want all of those teeny tiny details to get overwhelmed with marker ink. And that can happen sometimes, especially if our marker, the tips of our markers are a little bit wider than a space is. That's why colored pencils are so great, because they can get in all those teeny tiny little spaces. And you can see that these two artists right here are really coloring in with high quality colored pencil. This would be like at a 4.5 or a 5 on our rubric. So if you are really wanting to go above and beyond, you could practice really coloring in, staying inside the lines, and blending stuff together as you go. Remember, guys, though, that this is a second draft, so you're going to be getting feedback on this. Everybody will get a glow and grow. So if your work is not perfect, that's okay. We're going to be starting our final drafts together, so we can also really work towards doing a 4 on our coloring or a 3 together during either in-person art crew or a live art class on Zoom. Right, some more high quality coloring references along with a rubric of what each number means. So if you're coloring at a 1, you're a beginner or a novice. There's nothing wrong with that. That just means that we have to practice some more coloring skills to move up to a 2. And you can see right here we have a little seed to show that we're beginning. We're approaching, we're starting to reach up through the ground to the sky. 3 means we've met our target, our work is nice and neat, our colors make sense, our colors are inside the lines, and if we are at an expert, we are going above and beyond, we have fully bloomed, and it looks a little bit like this coloring right over here with this bird, and you can see that the person who colored this in stayed inside the lines, they used multiple colors, they added some shading. Again, if that's something you want to try, that is something to try on this draft so that you get familiar with what that feels like. It might not turn out the first time. That's okay. All right. What is due in Google Classroom this week? Your second draft. Please turn in a high quality photo or scan of each of your second draft by Friday at 8 p.m. Got a little typo there. I'll fix that in a second. This is graded. It will be just graded on if it's completed or not. You will also receive feedback from me on this draft. So make sure that you are just trying your very best. If you are done and you would like to do some extra practice, these are 2 great drawing videos that show you how to draw a person in motion. So this could definitely be applied to your Playbill. It looks like the coloring tools right here on this one are oil pastels. You do not have to use oil pastels, but I think this is both of these would be great to learn how to draw people in motion a little bit better. And that would be great for your Peter Pan playbill. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the next slide this way. Oops, that's the same slide. We have one more optional art lesson this week, and that is in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We have a Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. portrait. This is great practice, again, for drawing people and facial features. We have a bunch of different photo reference guides right here of Dr. Martin Luther King. We have a drawing guide right here. If you would like, you can just click on that and it will enlarge and become bigger. We have a completed example right here, and we also have a directed video right here. The video does move quickly, so make sure that you watch it once all the way through so you know what to do, and then watch it through a second time, this time pausing to complete each step before you move on to the next one. All right, friends, if you have any questions, I am available between 7 and 4, Monday through Friday. As we do not have school on Monday, I will be available Tuesday through Thursday. And make sure you've checked off all of the things you need to complete this week and turn in a high quality photo or scan of your completed second draft to the art assignment for this week by Friday at 8 p.m. And I will give you more information about how we're going to be doing our final draft next time. All right, guys, enjoy your second drafts, and I'll see you next time. Bye.